welcome to part one of this year's post-TIAFT meeting special episode. Someone pointed out to me recently that we seem to call most of our episodes special episodes, so here's another one. Neither Tim or I could make it to the St. Gallen meeting to get on the spot interviews with delegates this year, so we asked TIAFT Past President Dimitri Gerostamoulos to give us a rundown of how the St. Gallen, Switzerland meeting went. We also have another chat with a friend of the Tox Pod, Michael Scholz, who won the Young Scientist Best Oral Presentation Award. Hope you enjoy part one. Dimitri Gerostamoulos, thank you for joining the Tox Pod.
Thank you for having me.
So, following the St. Gallen meeting, you're now the past president. Now you're there to help out Simon and make sure things are running smoothly in the transition, I guess.
Well, yes, and I guess I'm there to provide some guidance, as Mark LeBeau was for me in my term as president. But we're in good hands. Simon has made a roaring start. I know he's got a lot of things on his plate, but he's progressing and ticking off. He's got lots of tick boxes. He likes to make sure that things are done. And I know that he's been in close contact with all the new members of the board. We've had our first board meeting. So look, it's exciting. It's good fun. And but there's a lot to do as well. So it'll be good.
Well, let's go back to the last 3 years when you were the president. Congratulations on a solid term. You had quite a few changes to the organisation and especially to the board. So you must be pretty proud of what's happened there.
Yeah, look, I think it's a slow and steady evolution of the association as a whole. I mean, when this board came together in 2022, we came together at the time of COVID, if you remember. It was a virtual handover at our first and only online symposium, our only online TIAFT annual meeting, so to speak. And in those 3 years, we've increased the membership significantly. We've increased member benefits as well. We've had to make changes to the membership, and every category of member is now a fee-paying member. And that's important because the costs of running the association have increased, whilst we're still trying to deliver as many benefits to our members as possible. So look, yeah, it's been a busy period. It's been a busy 3 years. But, around me, I've had good people who have done some good work. And they include not only the ones who have continued on the board, such as Christoph, Sarah, and Simon, but also colleagues such as Mark, Carmen, Nikos, and Jean-Claude, who have now departed, but, worked pretty solidly as a team. We did a lot as a group, and I'm really proud of the work that we did as a board for that period.
The board, especially you and Mark LeBeau, have always had tremendous support for the Tox Pod, even for when we were not even part of a TIAFT organisation. We were members, of course, but we weren't underneath your banner. We just wanted to say thank you very much for all your support over the years, and it's been a pleasure working with TIAFT closely, and you've been very supportive, so thank you very much.
Oh, thanks, Pete, and to Tim, of course. We've seen the benefits of the Tox Pod coming to TIAFT, so to speak, but the content is terrific. I know that it's a widely downloaded podcast for toxicologists around the world, which is really important, and also gives value to our members about what is happening around the world. And it's a terrific medium to get to know people from Brazil, from the US, from the UK, from Africa, from Asia. There's a real opportunity for us to get to know each other, in between the annual meetings, which I think is really important, and also cover issues that we deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah,
we've
enjoyed it as well. Jochen Bayer and his team were responsible for organising the St. Gallen conference. Unfortunately, I can't get hold of Jochen in time for recording this episode. As you were president and also a close colleague of Jochen over the years, would you mind filling us in about how the conference went?
It was terrific. It was a traditional TIAFT meeting in every sense of the word. I experienced what was one of the better TIAFT meetings that we've had over many years, and that's not being disparaging about our previous meetings, but this was a really good traditional TIAFT meeting. Lots of really good science, a busy program, really focused on showcasing young people, which was great. And they were short and sweet presentations. There were no plenaries, there were no keynotes other than the opening speakers, which were excellent. Good dinners, good opportunities to catch up with people. The conference venue was great. The food was excellent. The coffee was, as we expected from Jochen, was really good. I love the fact that we're all pretty much together in the one place over the 5 days. And I think credit has to go to Jochen, his team, who put on a terrific conference. And, conferences like that don't happen easily, as you know, and they take a lot of people and a lot of organisation, a lot of hours. And look, in the end, he had more than 700. We, as association, we had more than 750 delegates. We had over 100, close to 100 oral presentations, more than 300 posters. The flash posters seem to work pretty well, where you've got 3 minutes to get your message across, even less time than an oral. But it was really good, and I must commend Jochen on his efforts. He worked really hard to ensure that we all had a great experience. From the moment the meeting opened to the moment that the meeting closed, which was quite late on the Friday night. As TIAFT meetings go, it had all the traditional elements, which was great. Oh, the excursions were terrific. Sort of midweek excursions. You had an option of 3 choices. They were excellent. Look, it was a terrific meeting. Looking forward to the next one.
Thank you very much for joining us, Dimitri, and I hope you can enjoy your time a little bit on the back seat rather than driving the organisation at the moment.
Happy to be in the back of the bus for a little while, Peter. No worries.
Okay, thank you very much.
Take care.
Hello again, Michael Scholz. Welcome to the Tox Pod.
Hello, Peter. Nice to talk to you again.
Now, you're from the University of Zurich in Switzerland. The Tox Pod's been poking its nose into your project from the beginning, probably back in Versailles in 2022 when we met. Then we had a progress report in Rome. And now we're starting to get to the end of your project, your PhD project, where you're starting to get a few results.
Yeah, that's about right. I mean, the project is, of course, it will live on. But yeah, I'm towards the end of my PhD, and we do have some good results that we presented. And yeah,
this year presentation was awarded one of the TIAFT's most prestigious awards at TIAFT meetings, the Young Scientist Best Oral Presentation. So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. I was very delighted to receive that award.
Your project's entitled The Effects of Sleepiness in the Metabolome, the Road to Biomarkers in Oral Fluid. So maybe we need to get a bit of a recap. Maybe we should start with what's metabolomics and how does that work?
Yeah, so what we usually say, metabolomics is a readout or a direct readout of somebody's phenotype. It's been at the end of the omics cascade. So when we start with the genes and then, with all the proteins, modifications, enzymes, and so on, we're at the very end. So the small molecules that we detect, they present basically what we are in this moment. What we do is we detect as many small molecules as we can at once, and then we compare how these change over time. So in our case, we would compare how the metabolome changes from when we are awake to when we are tired, and to compare these different states. And yeah, of course, we have to sort out all the environmental influences and so on to get a good idea what happens in the body. Yeah.
The way that you sort through this giant mess of chemicals in people's bodies is using high resolution mass spectrometry, and that I guess has probably come forward in leaps and bounds over the last decade or so. So I guess that's why there's so many of these projects cropping up. Metabolomics projects cropping up.
Absolutely. I mean, technology has advanced a lot over the past years, and also what we can do nowadays with high resolution mass spec is incredible, right? The sensitivity that we have nowadays is just astonishing, and that was actually the starting point, just because that was then the time that my boss had the idea, like, yeah, mass spectrometry could solve that riddle. I mean, we can be that sensitive. We can have such a good overview, and we can detect so many metabolites at once. This might solve the riddle actually. And yeah, as you said, it's tedious work to sort out what is endogenous, what is exogenous, and to control for all the influences that there are.
So tell us about the controlled studies that you did and what some of the results were.
Yeah, so what we did was we had 20 participants in-house. We were collaborating with the Human Sleep Laboratory, which is here on campus in Zurich. They had a lot of experience, obviously, with human sleep studies, and we were happy that we could collaborate with them. So we had participants following a certain sleep schedule. The first part is what they did at home. So they were wearing some actigraphs and also filling in some sleep diaries, so we could actually prove that they had followed the schedule that we gave them. And then for the in-house part, they would come to us and stay for about 2 days in the sleep laboratory, where we could then also write some EEG, so electroencephalograms, and do all the testing, also oral fluid testing, other biomatrices that we sampled, and performance tests, obviously. And so the idea was we would have them mimic the most prevalent sleep scenarios that we have in our society. And so obviously one time we would give them enough sleep opportunity. They would always be well rested. And this was go as some sort of baseline measurement for the other conditions, for the interventions. And for these, we had some sort of very unique scenario. I've never seen a sleep study doing this before. We gave them 2 other interventions, sleep interventions. One was sleep restriction, where we mimicked a sort of normal work week. So we would give them a little less sleep for about 4 nights, 6 hours instead of 8 hours sleep opportunity. So as you know, like a normal Monday to Friday schedule, I would say.
Yeah.
So they would accumulate a sleep debt or a sleep loss of 8 hours, just 4 times 2 hours. And then yet another time, so we would have them here 3 times actually, yet another time, we would also make them have a sleep loss of 8 hours, but this time at once. So we would sleep deprive them. They would have had enough sleep the days before, but then when they came here, we would keep them awake the entire night. And so they also had a sleep loss of 8 hours. So that was what actually made these conditions comparable. And actually, although they had the same amount of sleep loss, the effects were very, very different.
Okay. And were you in the laboratory at that time as well? Did you lose sleep?
Yes, I have to say I was actually the most sleep restricted or most sleep deprived person of the entire study. I was there every week, and yeah, of course we were a team. We were a team of about 8 people, and we were also working on shifts. Obviously, if we had to keep the participants awake the next day, we couldn't accompany them. We would have been the same sleep deprived, and all the effects that we wanted to show would also work on us, right?
Yeah. So how did you keep them awake?
So we had a lot of board games in the sleep laboratory. We would walk around the campus. But yeah, although we had to make sure that they do not see any screens. So we did not want to have them see blue lights, that the blue light will have an influence on our inner rhythm, on the melatonin status and so on. So we would take away their phones and screens, tablets and so on during nighttime.
Jeez, that would have been terrible for them.
Yeah, it's not like we could watch movies during the night. And also activities like we couldn't play table tennis or anything like that. But yeah, easy walking and board games and card games, and that filled most of the nights, I would say.
Okay, and what results did you get from the study?
Heaps of results. Where to start? It was actually nice to see over the past year when we looked at the data that it basically tells the same story. No matter at which test you look or no matter at which biofluid you look at, the main outcome is basically that sleep deprivation is a whole different thing than sleep restriction. So what we've seen and what was most prevalent in the data is the fact that you can be a little sleep restricted, like as we had 8 hours, 4 times 2 hours sleep restricted, but you're still doing quite okay. I mean, of course, we could see a performance decrease. Of course, we could see a shift in your metabolome, but that was very soft. You were still doing all right. Also, in the driving. We were testing in a driving simulator in a very, very realistic setting. And although we could see some impairments, they were still doing quite well. So I see that as a little relief for the working class. You're doing all right, okay? But then again, on the other hand, sleep deprivation was just horrible. It was in all the performance tests, especially the driving simulator, we've seen so many microsleep episodes. We've seen accidents that, I would say a few of the participants wouldn't have survived if we did that in a real car.
Wow.
We've seen then very, very prominently, we've seen that shift in the metabolome. So it was not like an addition on the sleep restriction. No, it was a very, very different shift. It was some sort of unique signature. And that was what I was presenting actually in St. Gallen. That unique signature of sleep deprivation, it was so strong that we could build a predictive model from this data. So we could predict by a single oral fluid sample if somebody was sleep deprived or not.
Wow, that's a pretty amazing achievement. Is that's probably the first example of this sort of predictive model that exists?
Yes, definitely. In oral fluid, it is the first. I mean, we were actually the first ones to investigate this in oral fluid. There were some other groups that did that in blood, or they tried it in blood and plasma. But for oral fluid, we were definitely the first. And I mean, the study was designed in a way that we could use it later roadside. The intention was there from the very beginning. So that's why we were focusing on non-invasive biofluids to make this testing applicable for roadside testing one day. Yeah.
So you said the shift in metabolome was a unique signature. How do you think that may be translated in many years probably to a roadside testing device?
I mean, that's a future project that we are on. I have to say that from next year on, we will collect a lot of real samples from roadside testing. This is actually also, if I may, a little shout out or middle advertisement. If there are some people listening to us right now and they have access to our fluid samples from roadside, please get in touch with us and let us know. We are happy to collect even more because we want to see all the influences that there are in the real world. I mean, we've seen this effect in the sleep laboratory now very clearly. But yeah, laboratory means that we had to control for some factors. Not for all. We tried to be as realistic as possible. So it was not that they had, constant dim light all the time and so on, which you often see in sleep studies. But we obviously had to control for food, for example. And of course, the participants were not allowed to drink any coffee or any other stimulants. But yeah, we want to see, do these markers or does this signature survive in the wild with all the other influences that there are?
Getting back to, I guess, metabolomics principles, when you say a shift in a metabolome, this is a group of chemicals that were they identified in the sample or were they at higher concentrations? What's the differentiation? Were there new chemicals in people who are extra sleepy or were there just more of the normal ones?
Yeah, that is the interesting thing now about sleepiness and the endogenous metabolome, because, usually for example, if you take a drug, you would obviously find some new metabolites. You would find some substances that they were not in our body before, and they belong to the drug. However, now that we're dealing with sleepiness and we are looking only at endogenous molecules, these substances are in us all the time. So that makes it, of course, a little more complicated because we are the shift that I'm talking about means that the composition has changed. So these molecules might be increasing or decreasing, or they might turn rhythmic or arrhythmic. They just shifted their behavior. But the composition, like the ratios from one to each other, they have changed in a way which speaks for sleepiness or which tells us, hey, this is something that only happens after sleep deprivation.
Is there one or two metabolites that you could use a ratio for that you can tell us about, or is it not that simple?
We would be happy if it was just one or two. We were measuring more than 6,000 features,
Right.
which belong to more than, I don't know how many thousands metabolites at once. And obviously, we want to have as few markers as possible with a very good performance. And we found that we would, it depends. How precise do you want to be, right? If you're okay with 50% precision, then you might just go with one. But obviously for us forensics, that's not possible. That's not applicable. We need to be very, very precise. And especially we need to rule out false positives. That is, I think, one of our highest demands and requirements for such a test. So we found that we would need around 10 to 12. 10 to 12.
Oh, that's fewer than I expected.
Well, yeah, it works definitely in the laboratory. A method of 10 to 12 compounds is something that we regularly work with, right? However, if you think of some sort of rapid test roadside, if you have to detect 10 substances at once, well, it's possible, definitely, but still, it's a little more complicated than just one or two.
This is probably outside the scope of your project. I was just curious, what are these metabolites? Why do you think they change their ratios? Is it because at a certain point of the sleep cycle, the brain gets rid of various waste products, or does anyone know yet?
Yeah, that's a big question, isn't it? We're collaborating with some sleep researchers, and they focus on the big questions: why do we sleep at all, and what happens when we sleep, and so on. And since we know now that sleep deprivation is very different and very unique from sleep restriction, we know that it has something to do with the early sleep phases. And for now, I have to say, we believe that this change or this shift that we see is because you were skipping sleep, and especially deep sleep. Sleep, the process of sleep basically works like this. At first, you do all the very, very important sleep phases. So the things that you definitely need to survive. At one point, you would simply die if you do not sleep, right? You wouldn't get rid of the waste products. You wouldn't have the restorative effect of sleep that we need. Sleep is an active process. It's not a passive process. Our body needs sleep to survive. And there's definitely a point when the important parts are done. And from then on, it is, I would say, just bonus. Sleep researchers have been debating this for decades, I was told. Where is this kind of sweet spot? How many hours of sleep do we need to survive? And from when on it is bonus? However, for our project or for our results, we could translate this into, so if you have little sleep, like sleep restriction, you will still do all right, because the main parts, the important parts that are important for your survival have been accomplished. They have been done. You definitely lack your bonus sleep, your bonus restorative time. However, if you do not sleep at all, if you lack the important and the essential part of sleep, then everything goes wrong. Then the waste products, they will just pile up in your body. Important processes in our metabolism that only happen when we sleep, these simply did not happen last night because you were compensating, you were awake. And yes, our bodies, they can compensate for quite a while. It's astonishing, and but at some point it's just over, and the effects of sleep deprivation will kick in very, very strongly, and we see that in the performance, but obviously we also see that in the metabolites.
So I guess the early parts of sleep sort of explains why a quick nap in the afternoon can sometimes have a pretty restorative effect.
It lowers your sleep pressure if you do a nap, but what you don't want to happen is that you fall into deep sleep, because that's why you limit your nap to about 20 to 30 minutes and no longer, because after that you might fall into first deep sleep phase. And that's actually what our body does. As soon as it reaches deep sleep, some of these essential processes, they run. and they run only during deep sleep. And when you get waken up during deep sleep, that is, I think, one of the nastiest feelings that you can have. Yeah.
It feels like you've been hit in the head with a shovel. You have a too long a nap.
I mean, you're giving your body wrong signals, right?
Yeah. I guess we should ask, where to from here? Are you nearly finished your PhD, or you still have another year or two?
I'm about to finish.
Okay.
I'm actually handing in the paper this week, at the end of the week. So we will hand in the result that we showed at TIAFT for publication. And we'll be interested to see how the peer reviewers will think about it and how it will be conceived in the public audience, so to say. I've spoken to many clinicians, and they also would be very interested in if they had this sort of rapid, objective, and reliable test for sleep deprivation or for sleep loss. That would also come very handy for them. So yeah, you see, the project is definitely not finished. So yeah, as I said, from next year on, we will collect some more samples from the wild, from the field, and to shape this biomarker panel a little more and make it hopefully accessible for us in real testing very, very soon.
Can you see the biomarker panel being a mass spectrometry assay, or more like similar to the current roadside drug testing? Is there any thoughts on that at this early stage? So,
I mean, in the study, we measured all of these chemicals via mass spec. So we definitely have the tools ready and to do this right now. And for now, it's a laboratory test, absolutely. For the future, we will see what the future brings, right? I mean, I've been talking to people that they are trying to get mass spec on the road, so some portable mass spec. I don't know what the future will hold, but it could be one day that the police can do this at roadside with a portable mass spec. I have no idea.
Thank you very much, Michael. Congratulations again on your award, and it's been good to catch up with you 3 years in a row after a TIAFT conference.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you.